Okay, well, welcome to this presentation of how I made $302,333 and those 20 cents in my first 18 months as a brand new life coach. And the first thing I want to tell you is I appreciate you and I honor and acknowledge you showing up for this webinar. There's all kinds of other things I know you could be doing, but it tells me that you are interested and committed on some level, obviously, to this industry and to growing a coaching business. And this whole thing is really going to be for coaches. And here's my intention for this webinar. It is to share with you everything I can. I mean, within the 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 time restraints that we have here. Otherwise, this would be an 8-hour long webinar. Although I would love that. I don't think you all probably would. But I want to share with you as much as I can of what I went through. Everything, the good, the bad, the ugly, in my first 18 months in coaching. I really want to talk about reality. I'm a big believer in transparency. And in this industry, I think you've got to be prepared. And that's what I want for you. And I want to give you hope and not hype. And this is big for me, and on this webinar, I mean, I'm just going to talk. This isn't going to be some big hyped up presentation. I'm not going to, try to create urgency and tell you there's some expiring offer at the end and you only have 27 minutes to take advantage of it and all that stuff. Otherwise the information goes away forever. There's so much of that in this industry, especially internet marketing in general. I'll tell you a quick story. I remember getting on a guy's list and I went to one of his sales pages and he was selling a PDF download of something, some sales process or whatever. And in his email, he said that there were only 25 copies left, right? And first of all, I knew this was what's called an evergreen email. This wasn't a real thing. He was going to send this email like 4 days after you joined his list. And so he's creating urgency in an ongoing process. And he's telling me he has 25 copies of his PDF digital file left, as though it's like inventory, right? Once those 25 downloads are up, then, they all go away. So there's way too much of that in marketing in general, a ton of that stuff in this industry. And that's certainly not me. You're not going to get any of that. And I really believe in what I say here. Truth is hope enough. What you can do in this industry is a big enough hope for you. You don't need to be all jacked up out of your mind. And actually, that's not good for you, right? And so that's what I want to give you on this webinar as best I can, is some clarity, some confidence, some strategy ideas. I'm not going to give you, and this is really important to get right out of the gate, I'm not going to give you this one size fits all, quote unquote turnkey system that all you have to do is just, plug and play. And I know a lot of marketers sell that stuff, and I've bought plenty of those things, but I've never known that to work at all. And so I don't want you to be searching for any sort of, shortcut or magic bullet. One of the things I like to say is trying to shortcut your success will cut your success short, especially in this industry, right? So if you're looking for some, secret sauce or anything like that, you will leave this webinar disappointed. I can promise you that right now. This industry, I mean, it takes effort, it takes determination, it takes the right mindset, it takes support. It takes a lot of stuff, and a lot of people are not willing to put forth that kind of effort, and that's one of the biggest reasons why people quit. But I don't want you to, again, search for this, one size fits all, because there's so much variation in this industry. And this has to be based on you. There are some fundamental concepts that I've learned in my, 7 or 8 years that need to be clarified and they need to be amplified before you go out and open up your doors, before you go out and try to sell anything. You've got to have clarity on things like your purpose and your goals and your vision, ultimately where you want to take this whole thing for your life as well as your company. You've got to take some inventory, know what your limitations are. You've got to know what your message is on some level, who your seeker is, what your skill sets are, how to package your coaching products and programs, and what your coaching preferences are. I was just with a coaching client yesterday, and she said, I finally figured out I love eye-to-eye coaching. And what that means is she doesn't want to do phone coaching. She doesn't want to do group coaching. She wants to do one-on-one coaching, but live in person. There's something that just juices her up about eye to eye, where she can actually see that person. And if that's what gets you going, then you've got to build your business differently than somebody who just wants to sling a bunch of products online and do a lot of internet marketing. And I'm not saying that's wrong either. It's just, you've got to be congruent. So it's pointless for you to just try to mold your business after somebody else's. So that's why in this webinar, I'm going to give you what I did. And I cannot tell you with any level of integrity what's going to work for you, right? And anybody that does, in my opinion, that tells you if you do this, it'll work for you. I honestly, in my experience, this might sound harsh, but this is my experience. I think they're a crook. And I think that that's fraud, right? Any product that says all you got to do is plug in and play, all those promises are garbage in my experience. I've never met one or bought one that actually lived up to that marketing hype. So I want you to come into this industry with a sense of realness and a sense of awareness and understanding. So again, I don't know what's going to work for you, but I'll tell you exactly what worked for me. And in that story over the course of this webinar, I guarantee you'll find ideas and concepts that I expand upon that will work for you with your details, right? And I promise you that'll happen if you have the willingness to implement. So I want you to take all this information and look for the concepts that you can manifest into your own business. Don't try to do what I did exactly, but take the concepts and the lessons that I've learned and implement them into yourself, because you've got to keep your uniqueness in this mix. That's really important. So what I want to do is really ignite you, right? I want to give you some strategies, some pointers, etc. that are going to get you going. They're going to light you up, but still coming from a transparent, heart-centered space. So that's sort of the foundation that I want to lay with you on this webinar right now. Here's how it's going to work. We're going to go for anywhere between 75, 90 minutes, maybe a little bit longer. I can't imagine going shorter than that with all the stuff that I want to share with you. And I'm sure I'll come off the cuff with a lot of things that I just think about in the moment. As I said a little bit earlier, type your questions as you think of them. I'll answer them as we go if they're relevant to what I'm talking about. Otherwise, I'll wait till at the end. And this is a really important concept. Instead of you trying to take notes of all the things that I'm going to tell you, like, don't try to be a scribe and just capture all the words that you're going to see on this presentation. I want you to take notes of inspiration, not notes of information, because if you just try to script down everything that I have in my slides, you're going to lose a lot of information, but you're also going to rob yourself of those inspired moments where you think of something in between the words that I'm saying. And that's the way you're going to get the most out of this presentation, is your inspired ideas, right? And then towards the end, I'll let you know if you want more help with myself or Sam, how we can partner together and help you in your business. But again, we're going to be covering a lot. It might feel like we're going at breakneck speed here. And if you have trouble catching it all, no worries. I don't have a problem with sharing the recording with you later. Now, I got ahead of myself here. I don't want to swear at the beginning, right? I don't have a lot of rapport with some of you yet, so I don't want to just come out and swear. So I did find an image, though, of the word that I would use if I was going to allow myself to swear, 10 minutes into this webinar. But this is really what I'm all about. I'm going to declare this as a no BS zone, right? When I got into this industry, I was disillusioned with a lot of stuff. And some of that stuff was about things that people actually said to me. And some of it was just my own expectations, what I thought was going to happen. And what I realized is there's a lot of disillusionment if you think that the profit margins are really high in this industry and you realize that you made $10,000 one event, but only 1,000 of it got into your bank account, right? Or if you think that selling is just going to be easy, or all you've got to do is, do some work on social media and a bunch of people are going to just run to your websites, like that's just not going to happen for most people. So I don't want to burst any of your bubbles. I don't want to take any air out of your sails, but I do want you to be prepared with reality. Because if you're prepared with reality and you know what you're getting into and you still decide to go for it, Now you're setting yourself up with the right mindset at the beginning to succeed. And if you have that right mindset, we can we can play together. Whether you end up working with me or Sam or anybody on my team or just somebody else in the industry, people can help you if you have the right mindset. But if you don't have the right mindset, then nobody's going to be able to help you. So I want to try to get rid of any of those false expectations right away. And before we get going into my journey and my content, I want to just share with you real quickly, what's possible in this industry. And it's absolutely possible to create a fantastic business with incredible income. Whether you want $50,000 a year, multiple six figures a year, $1 million a year, all of that is available in this industry when you just simply share your knowledge and share your message and learn some business building techniques and scale it up. Anything you want to do is available. And I know coaches, I've paid coaches, 300, 500. I've paid one of my coaches $1,000 an hour, and I thought I got a great deal because the information I got back from him was well more than $1,000. And so I don't want you to think, I don't want you to have like this corporate mentality. If you want to build a business, and it's also not about just making money, right? I mean, I'm going to share with you money. I'm going to share with you screenshots of my shopping cart. You're going to see the money that has come in, but I'm not trying to do this to impress you at all. I'm just trying to be real with you. So money is an important conversation, but it should not be driving you. If it's driving you in this business, you will probably at some point in time quit because of the challenges. If you don't really have clarity around your vision and you don't, you're not coming from a service mentality, this business, this industry is going to be challenging for you. Now, some people do get in this business and it's all about the money, and that's fine too. And I'm not here to judge anybody, but my experience is probably 99% of the people need a deeper level of purpose and drive. And then the money is an important conversation, right? So I just want to get that out in the beginning. So you can charge a lot of money. You don't have to charge 300, 500 bucks if you don't want to. Some markets won't pay that, and that's totally fine. But a lot of markets will pay a heck of a lot more than that. And to be honest, a six-figure coaching business is not all that difficult. It's not as hard as a lot of people think it is if you are set up properly, especially with today's technology, and especially if you get some right guidance and learn from some mentors in front of you and stuff. And the freedom and lifestyle, I can go on and on about that. It's just second to none. I mean, the trips that you're allowed to take, I'm hopping on a plane in a few days and heading to India. And I'm going to be out there for several weeks sharing this kind of stuff with people out there. And I mean, you can write your own schedule. You can travel all over the world and do whatever you want. You really can create whatever kind of business you want. And if you just want to stay behind your computer and never leave your den, you can do that too. So the variation in this industry is huge, and everything's already been figured out. You just got to plug in. You've got to plug into what works. Now, here's the problem, though. This is what I've seen as the problem. Most people get into this game to change lives, but the vast majority, and this is a conservative number, about 95%, never really get their businesses going. And 99%, even if they get their businesses going, they never really reach that point that they want to reach. And it's probably even more than that. Actually, I heard a statistic. I didn't write it down because I don't know the source, but I believe the statistic is pretty accurate. That 1 out of every 300 professional coaches ever get to that mark that they're trying to get to. Right around the six figure is usually about where it happens, but it's more about creating the lifestyle. About 1 out of 300 ever even get there. Now, if anything, I think that's actually low. Again, I am not trying to scare you, because most of those people are not doing what I'm telling you that you've got to do. You've got to have the right mindset. Most of those people are trying to just make quick money. They're trying to do it with no effort, no investment. They're just trying to take shortcuts. So it's not that this industry is only succeedable, if that's a word, for 1 out of 300 people. It's the human nature that most people try to take shortcuts. And that's why most people fail. And that's why most marriages fail. And that's why most people don't get A's in school. And that's why most people fail in the stock market. This is a human condition across the board with every opportunity. It has nothing to do with just this industry. But the human nature problems affect people in this industry too. So if you can avoid what most people typically do to set themselves up to fail, then you've got a shot. And now, if you tap into the right information, if you really get clear on some of these foundational pieces, now you can get after it, right? And that's what I'm excited about, is people that are ready to make that kind of decision. But what happens with most people, going back to the problem, is they get stuck in the quicksand of all this technology and scary stuff and trying to sell and trying to market and just do all kinds of stuff that's totally incongruent to them, and their message dies. And if I could get a little woo woo here for a second, this is really truly important for me, and I believe this wholeheartedly, that every single one of us has a song that we need to sing, and there are people out there that need to hear your message from you. And if you don't figure out how to make this business work, then not only does your business not get built properly, but they lose because they never hear what you have to help them. And so at a higher level, like that's a universal problem. That's where you're not giving your talents, you're not spreading it out into society, and these people don't get help. And I'll talk about your seeker here in a little bit, but I'm really big on this idea of people are out there seeking your knowledge, and I don't want you to be one of the ones that end up quitting, licking your wounds and retreating and so forth. So I'm really on a mission. This is where my heart is, to repave the road for new coaches especially. Now, whether you are a brand new coach, you just want to get into this industry, you don't have any paying clients, all of this will apply to you. Or you might be in the industry, you've got some clients, you've got some products, but you just want to go to another level. All of this will apply to you as well, because these are concepts that can be applied with different details no matter where you are. But my mission is to repave this road for coaches. And if you can't learn how to succeed in the very beginning, then you'll never get to some of those other places. I like to use an education analogy. Most people are trying to learn middle school concepts, but they haven't passed kindergarten yet. And I want to make sure that all new coaches who have the heart for this industry are set up to succeed from the get go. And most of them are not truly, in my opinion, being served with what they need. And some of it's their fault and some of it's the market fault or whatever, but that's where my heart is. And so the first message I have for you is that it's possible. You can do this no matter who you are, no matter where you've gone. If you're coming from the right place, you can do this as long as you have the tools, you have the guidance, and and you have the preparation, right? So if you know what's coming up and you might need a little bit of toilet paper, then and you're prepared, then you're going to be good. So let's get into this. Okay, so and I got a question. Where did you go for your training, and what's the biggest thing you learned along your journey? I'll definitely get into that. And if those questions are not answered at the end, then just ask them again. But we'll definitely get into that. Okay. So before we get going, I mentioned Sam Chillingworth is on the line with me. Sam is a partner of mine, and he's a panelist in this webinar. He's going to join in whenever he's got something real pertinent that he wants to add. And I just want to hear, or I want you to hear a little bit from Sam, so you know who he is and a little bit about his background before we jump into the content. So Sam, you want to jump in and just share a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Hi, Sean. Hi, everybody on the call. So glad that all of you are here. And Sean is he's a real deal. I mean, that's where I want to start is I would just want to convey to anyone who's on the call. I've known Sean for a number of years. I trust him. I believe in his concepts. I believe in what he stands for. And I wouldn't be here otherwise. I've worked for other people. Just give you a little background about who I am. I'm a husband to my childhood sweetheart, Jennifer, who I just married in October, but I've known since I was about 7 years old. So that's a
Nice.
big deal in my life. I am a father to a 8-year-old dog, the lab mix that I go surfing with down in Waikiki, which will tell you that I live in Honolulu, Hawaii, and I've lived on the mainland in California and some other places, but I've returned back to Hawaii because this is where my family is, and we have a long-standing history here. And it just goes to show you that you can really do whatever you want. I didn't know how I was going to be able to afford to live in Hawaii. It's a high cost of living, as many of you probably know, and the moves that I've made and the people that I've associated with, and the inner journey that I've taken has allowed me the financial stability and the amazing life that I get to live on this island here in Hawaii. So you can do it too, as Sean has said. And what's the next bullet point, Sean?
Your
Oh, my
purpose.
purpose. My purpose, to help others uncover the brilliance within them. It's very simple. I simply want to help people. If I'm not helping people, I am not serving in a way that I've meant to be on this earth to serve. And so this webinar is just one little tiny piece of the puzzle that allows me to feel fulfilled as a person in seeing you succeed in the dreams that you're pursuing. And lastly, just to give you some credibility of what I've done and where I've been, my last position was director of training, and I was in charge of business development for a man named Jack Canfield. If you don't know who Jack Canfield is, he was the creator of the Chicken Soup for the Soul book series, also the co-creator of the book The Success Principles, and feature teacher in the movie The Secret. So I spent a lot of years doing training and development and sales and you name it, from soup to nuts with him. And I brought a lot of that knowledge and expertise to Elite Coaching University and teaming up with Sean. So the sky's the limit for you. Enjoy the rest of the webinar, and hopefully we'll talk soon.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate that a lot. And um, Sam is just such a great guy. I mean, we love each other a lot. We've been together for many years in Jack Canfield's arena. That's where we met each other. And I've just always respected Sam so much. And when he made the choice to move back to Hawaii and he left Jack Canfield's company, he was number one on my hit list, so to speak. If there's anybody that I want working with me that I trust, inherently, and I want to lock arms with, it's this guy. And so I am so thrilled to have you on the team, Sam, and we're just in such good hands. And let me tell you a little bit about myself. Many of you already know me. If not, I'll give you a little bit of a background. This is a picture of my family here. I'm a father. I'm a husband to these two amazing kids. My daughter just turned 12. My son's 8. And then I'm a speaker and coach second, and that's my wife up there, Sybil. And I'm a speaker and coach second. And I think it's really important to create a business that with where your priorities are straight. And if my business didn't create the lifestyle that I wanted with my family, then I would be out. I would stop. And if at any point in time my family values are being pinched, then I will stop also. And I think a lot of people don't keep that in perspective. So I want you to always keep your values in perspective, no matter where you are, no matter what's important to you. Now, my personal development journey started in 2000, or at the age of 13, in 1986, rather. I was riding my bike to school and I got hit by a car, and the car was driving 50 miles an hour. And by all the details of the accident, I should have died that day. There's no way. I actually pulled right out in front of them. So they didn't stop, they didn't brake at all. There's no way I should be able to survive that impact. And it taught me just so much about life. I was high on life at the time. I had just come back from the Little League World Series. I was a hero in my hometown, and then I should have died that day. And so it taught me that no matter where we are, we only get one shot. And I've lived my life ever since with this one shot mentality. And I made a promise to myself that day that I would do everything I possibly could to not waste my life, to not settle for anything less than I'm capable of, to not settle for mediocrity. And I'm sure that every single one of you have made a similar promise to yourself. Otherwise, you wouldn't be in this industry. You wouldn't have showed up to this webinar. And so I congratulate you for that. And I know that self promises like that and just declarations aren't enough. So even though I said that to myself and I lived that way, I still held myself back for the better part of the next 20 years. And it really wasn't until I got into the world of personal development and got into the belief world and had a huge breakthrough that I understood how we hold ourselves back, and that became my mission. So what I want to do, what I'm here to do, is empower people to live their lives with passion, purpose, and presence. These are three huge words for me. If your life isn't passionate, what's the point, right? And if you don't have a purpose to drive you, it's going to be easy to stop at all the potholes along the way. And finally, if you're not present, if you're not here, you're not going to be fulfilled. You're not going to be able to enjoy your journey if you're always living in the past or looking forward to the future. So we've got to be present and be here. And that's how we're going to serve people. And that's how we're going to enjoy this journey. And that's the best way to show up in your coaching business as well. One of the things that you'll get from me is you've got to be authentic in this journey. And once I made the decision to get into this business, we did pretty well, right? And we're coming up on the $2 million mark. We'll cross that easily this year since beginning in 2006. And that's not the sexiest story out there, but it's real. And and again, I'm not saying that to try to impress you. But I want to teach you everything that I've learned along the way to create a business with some real money and that has given me some real freedom. And then you can scale it up or scale it down. You know, if $2 million is nothing to you, then go do that in 1 year, right? I mean, that's fine. But if you don't need that, it's not about the money, like meaning a certain dollar amount. I will never put a standard of success on you. What your definition of success is for you to come up with. And then whatever that is for you, then let's go ahead and make that happen. That's what I'm all about. So I want to tell you a story that's really important for me. And it's the story of my last conversation with my father. You know, my father, about 3.5 months ago, was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And I remember the day he called me. It was a September afternoon in 2010. And he called me and told me that he had gotten this diagnosis and that, um, he's final stage of cancer. And so I brought him home to my home, and he lived with us for his final 80 days. And when I knew that he was about to pass, I asked the hospice nurse if I could take the pain patches off of him so I could have one last conversation, because he had gone into this almost like a hypnotic state and he didn't know where he was and he wasn't conversational at all. And I felt incomplete and I just wanted one more talk with my dad. And so I took these patches off, and I remember it was a Super Bowl Sunday of 2011, and um, he came to, he got his awareness back, and I told him how much he meant to me, and I played a little video of all my childhood friends telling him how much he meant to them, and I held his hand the whole time. And when I knew this conversation was, kind of about to be done, I just had one burning question for him, and it was basically, Dad, how can I live your legacy when you're gone? And he looked at me. Well, he didn't look at me, but he just shook his head immediately. He had his eyes closed. He shook his head immediately and answered right away. He didn't give this any thought. He shook his head like I'd asked a silly question. And he goes, Shawnee, just be who you can be, do what you can do, and live a good life. And those words were so profound for me. It was like he gave me this torch of wisdom that I was obligated to pass on. And the reason I share that with you is because that's who I am. And especially over the last 3 years since my dad's final words to me, that is everything that I'm about. And if you can't be who you are, then who cares? I mean, I don't want to sound harsh, but in this life, a huge piece of this journey is about self-discovery. It's about knowing who you are, and it's about just doing your best. And if you know who you are and you just do your best, that's all the world can ask of you. That's all your creator can ask of you, right? I remember maybe a couple weeks ago, I heard somebody, I don't remember what the exact quote was, but I really liked the quote. It said something like, your talents are God's gifts to you. What you do with them are your gifts back to him. And I just thought that was so cool. And that's really the essence of this, right? What are my gifts? Who am I? What am I here to do? And let's just go for it. Let's try. Let's give it our best shot. So that's me. And I've got it personalized on my license plate now. Those words follow me everywhere. And one of the reasons I wanted to share that with you is because you have an obligation in your coaching business to be real and transparent as well. And the more open you are with your personality, the more people will relate with you. The deeper we go with our personal stories, the more universal they are. And that might sound a little counterintuitive, but it's the truth. And I won't go any deeper on that right now, because I want to get into this journey. But I just want to give you the permission, and really, it's more of an obligation for you to be real, for you to be open, for you to be honest. Because here's the thing, especially nowadays in where we are in the world, after the huge economic stuff that happened a number of years back, and so many scams and email scams and stuff on the internet, like, people have lost a lot of trust, especially online. People have lost a lot of trust. And one of the best ways, I think the absolute best way to create trust with people is to show up as a real human being. And once upon a time, the way you would create trust with people is you would try to impress them with all the things that you did, right? And that doesn't work anymore. As a matter of fact, that causes distrust a lot of times when you lead with how awesome you are. The the certifications that you have, all the accolades that you have, that actually creates distrust for a lot of people. The way to create trust is for you to just be real and don't try to be like anybody else. And that certainly doesn't mean that everybody's going to buy your stuff or hire you as a coach, but they will connect with you. You will connect with them. And I promise you, this journey will be so much easier. So let me get into my journey. And the intention for this is I want to just kind of walk you through my first 18 months really in this business. And as I go along, I'll share other things that come to my mind or other lessons that I've learned since. But I really want this to be about the beginning phases of a coaching business, right? If I tell you what I'm doing right now and I try to teach you, the middle school stuff, like I was saying earlier, but you're not in middle school and you're not at the exact same level that I'm at, it'll be lost and it won't matter. And I don't want you to just get a bunch of information that you go off on and don't implement, right? I don't want you to be overwhelmed. So anyway, let's get into this. 2005, 2006, I had some huge breakthroughs. I was going to so many seminars. I was investing tons of money in myself, and I had some gigantic breakthroughs. And at the end of 2005 is when I went to Jack Canfield's seminar, Breakthrough to Success, for the first time. And I also went to another seminar. I think I went to 10 seminars in about a 12-month period of time, and most of them were like a week long. It was crazy. I was gone all the time, but I was so hungry and I wanted to work on myself. And one of the seminars, I had a big breakdown where I didn't, I just came face to face with my beliefs of me not being good enough and not being able to succeed and so forth. And luckily, there was a coach in the room that took me outside and he walked me through about a 15-minute process and he helped me identify what that belief was, where it's coming from, and he helped me get rid of it. And that was such a gigantic breakthrough in my life. And that's really what caused me to want to get into this business, because I came home, I was a different person. People, were asking me what happened to me, if I lost weight, if I bleached my teeth, like what was up. They couldn't tell what actually happened, but they knew that I was vibrating differently, right? And so I came home and I just, I started talking. I started sharing the information that I was excited about, and I eventually decided that I wanted to be a speaker. And at that time, I was just learning so much about myself. This little picture is pretty relevant to where I was. I was just heavy personal development, and I think you have to do that in this industry, because this industry is all about transformation and helping people grow. And if you're not transforming and growing yourself, then I think you're doing people a disservice. I'll go so far as to say that if you're not continually working on yourself in this industry as a coach, it it's it's borderline, um, well, it's incongruent, right? I don't want to be too harsh, but it's incongruent to say the very least. And you will struggle because you're not evolving, and people are attracted to people who are evolving. So that's really where I started. And then in 2006, early 2006, actually, it might have been late 2005, I hired my first coach. And that's when everything really started to pick up for me. And so I learned some really important pieces. When you have a coach, they can see your blind spots, right? And most people's biggest successes or potential successes are in their blind spots. And so if you don't have a neutral set of eyes that are going to help you see what you're not able to see because you're too far in the forest, you're going to miss out. And everybody on this planet will go further faster with a coach. And when I started to do a lot of personal development, I realized that, Jack Canfield has a coach and Tony Robbins has a coach, and, all these people that I know have coaches. And in the sporting world, everybody has coaches. Like, who am I to try to do something but not follow the same recipe that these people are following? And so that's when I started to get accountability partners, and I hired coaches, and I created mastermind groups, and I just started to surround myself with these support systems, basically. And what I've found is that if you don't do that, you will struggle. I mean, I've never known anybody to create what they want to create on their own. And if you can, if you have and you can, then, my hat's off to you. You're the first one I've ever heard of. But I've never heard that. But I know a lot of people who are trying to be the first. whether it's an ego thing or it's a money thing or whatever the case may be. Get out of your way and get help. And the other thing is, and this was huge, is I was able to borrow the confidence from my coach. And I was also able to tap into a much bigger network of people because my coach had helped a bunch of people. She had ideas that I was never, ever going to have access to. She's been in the industry for a long, long time. And I just really understood how important that is because I tapped into a much bigger network from her. I was able to leverage her experience basically, than obviously ever than I ever could have on my own. So I really think you got to have a coach. And one of the things that I will also openly share about is what I did a few years later that led to bankruptcy, because that's where I just learned so many mistakes that I want people to avoid. And one of the things that led to my bankruptcy, and I didn't get this until later, is I fired my coaches because when the money started to dry up, what I did from a lack mentality, I tried to cut all expenses that I possibly could. And a lot of people do this. And so one of the expenses that I was viewing as just a luxury at the time was my coaching. And so I fired my coaches and I saved, however much money I was paying on a monthly basis. But I unplugged from all of these three things. And what it did is it actually just exaggerated the downfall. I mean, it amplified it. I fell faster because I got rid of. I thought I was getting rid of my expenses. What I was really getting rid of is part of my recipe for success, right? So whether that looks like private coaching for you, group coaching for you, accountability partners, masterminds, it's going to be different for each person, but you've got to create that support group. And I think the best way you can do this is to have a private coach. And I want to talk about money. Now that I mentioned that for a minute, I want to talk about money for a second because this is a huge piece, and you've got to have clarity, and um, you've got to have a peace and a calmness around money. Most people don't. Most people have limiting beliefs around money, and they've got some negative connection around money. And if you have limitation, if you have irritation around money, then what happens is there's an unconscious connection that's created. And that unconscious connection is absolutely deadly. I've been through it in a deep, deep way for about 3 years in this business. And then it comes back up every now and then. I've kind of tapped back or dipped back into those valleys every now and then since. But I can tell you, it is absolutely deadly. And what I've learned is that money requires flow. Like you can't just hoard your money and then think that you're going to have a lot of money come into your life because it requires a flow. If there's no cash flow and all there is a bottleneck, then especially in this industry, you're not going to have much money coming in because you're not thinking in an abundance mentality. You're thinking in a hoarding mentality. You're thinking in a lack mentality. So what I've realized in this industry, and this is true all across the board, like meaning from day one to even now, when I'm investing in my business, in myself, in my growth, and I've got money flowing, I attract a lot of money coming in. And when I do the opposite, when I stop all the investing, I stop all the attracting as well. So you've got to be conscious of the flow. Now, I'm not saying to just go out and just, waste a bunch of money. That's not what I'm saying. But you can't be in a hoarding mentality and also in an abundance situation at the same time. So you will not abundantly attract money if you're hoarding it energetically, right? So, and I'm not saying all this stuff to, I'm not trying to use any, kind of NLP, like embedded command sales techniques or anything like that right now. I mean, I'm just being open and honest with you about money. And I'm not just trying to talk you into investing into us. Of course, we have coaching programs and we'll tell you some of that stuff if you want to go on. That's not the point here. This is a much bigger conversation. And this goes well beyond coaching. It goes well beyond money itself. This is in all areas of your life, right? Whatever it is that you want to receive more of, you got to give more of. If you want more happiness, you've got to give more happiness away. If you want more respect from people, you've got to give people more respect. If you want more love, you've got to give love out. I mean, so this is just like it's like the law of reciprocity in human nature. right? But it applies to money as well, and it applies to this industry as well. So that's why I wanted to bring it up while it was on my mind. And the other thing is just success consciousness, right? A lot of people are so afraid to fail, and success requires some measure of risk always. You're just never going to get away from that. I'm a baseball guy. I grew up playing baseball for like 15, 16 years of my life. One of my favorite quotes that has always stuck with me is, you'll never be able to steal second base with your foot on first, right? You got to take your foot off of first base and risk getting picked off in order for you to steal second. And in the entrepreneurial game, you've got to have a level of risk. Now, I want it to be calculated risk, obviously, but you will never, ever find any entrepreneur that doesn't have that risk ability, the ability to risk and on some level, bet on themselves, right? So you've got to have that willingness to go for it, because there's no such thing in this industry or success or life in general as a guarantee that I've ever found. And that's what a lot of people are looking for. And that's one of the reasons why they're searching for those guaranteed programs. You turnkey, just do this and everything, you turn on this website and money will start flowing to you. That is all crap. It doesn't work. And the more that you search for that, the more you're going to dig yourself into a ditch, right? So it's about taking calculated risks. It's about calculated investments. And some investments are going to pay off. Some investments are not going to pay off. Of course, I've made so many investments in my business. Some of them had tremendous success and some of them didn't. But from an here's another key piece. I remember hearing about this maybe a month or two ago. I thought this was so fascinating. Just the investment mentality. What that means is, let's take the stock market, for example. Let's say you've got 10 stocks in front of you, and these are all high risk stocks, meaning you might put $1 in and this stock might go, 20 to 1. Now, of course, those are few and far between, but just for this, just for this example. So what that means is, if you invest $1 into this stock, what do you have to lose? You've got $1 to lose. But if you invest $1 in that stock and it takes off, what do you have to gain? In my example, you've got $20 to gain. And of course, stocks are volatile and ever evolving, so it's not going to just be a hard number like that. But the investment mentality says, what do I have to lose versus what do I have to gain? And the more that you take calculated risks, the more, rockets that you light on fire, the more chances are that one of those rockets or several of them are going to take off. But if you're waiting for that guaranteed thing, if you're waiting to test the water before you jump in, chances are you're going to spend your whole life at the edge of the pool. What I've known, what I know to be true, and I think most of you would agree with this, the people who are the most successful are the ones that jump in the pool without even knowing if the water's hot or cold, and they learn how to swim when they're in, right? Now, I'm not saying, again, be haphazard. I'm not saying that, but you've got to take action. You've got to take some calculated risk, and you've just got to go for it, right? All right. And okay, so let's go on. Sorry, we went off track there a little bit. But money and investing in money is important. And what I've learned is that the two most important things, the most valuable things that I've ever invested in, are people, like coaches or seminars, or some level of support, right? Like software support or communities, whether it's online, Facebook or whatever. So it's either individual people or some level of support. That'll always give you, in my experience, your best return. So in other words, you can spend 10,000 bucks. I've probably spent 20,000 bucks on various information products out there and not used any of them. And a lot of it is because I just didn't get to it, or I got into it and I couldn't apply it to my life. It wasn't customizable for me. And so I ended up quitting. And a lot of people have that experience. And if I would have taken that 20,000 bucks and I would have invested into a coach, I would have gotten infinitely more returns than I did with that particular $20,000, right? So again, all of this is your own personal journey. You've got to make the right decision when it comes to investing. But I just want to share with you some of the concepts, that I've learned. All right, let's go continue on my journey here. So in February of 2006, on February 17th, of 2006, I held my very first seminar. And this seminar was called How to Maximize Your Athletic Ability. Now, I decided to host this seminar 90 days before. And 90 days before, I said, I will have a seminar. It will be recorded. It will have 100 people at it. and this will be the launch of my business. At the time, I didn't know what I was going to teach. I didn't have a business. I didn't have a venue. I didn't have anything. But I just made the declaration with the prodding of my coach, by the way. And then I held that event. And I held the event actually 90 days exactly to the day from when I made that goal. And you might not believe this, but this is the truth. There were exactly 100 people at that event. I mean, and I wasn't conscious. I wasn't paying. It was a free event, so I couldn't even tell who was going to come. So I wasn't consciously like monitoring the registrations or anything. But it just so happened there were 100 people on the nose at that event, and it was recorded and all that stuff. And it was like my launch. And if I look back to that event now, I mean, I cringe at what I taught. My, I, I, I probably, I was soaking wet when I did the quote unquote sales pitch. I offered something to buy, and I was so shaky and nervous. It had to be one of the worst sales pitches in the history of mankind. But you know what? It was the starting point. And a lot of people don't give themselves the leeway to be a beginner at something, especially if you've been successful in other things. We don't like our ego doesn't like to go back to square one and be a beginner at anything really. But you've got to give yourself permission to start because you can never grow unless you start, right? So this was a starting point for me. And it was huge, and it was geared mostly toward high school athletes. Now, one of the things that happened that is significant for the rest of my journey is 25 ladies who were in the company Mary Kay showed up at this event. And I didn't know them and they didn't know me, but they heard this event was going on. And so they showed up, and they missed their meeting that week, and they showed up and went to my thing. And they came up to me afterwards and asked me if I would want to speak for them. And I said, absolutely no. No way. I'm not going to speak for you guys. I don't want to teach women how to sell lipstick and stuff. I want to teach athletes how to set goals and pound on their chest, right? So I declined them, but I'm going to put that on pause here because this is going to be significant in a little bit. But going back to this event, how to maximize your athletic ability. Here are some of the learnings that I got. Number one, book it. Too many people are waiting to be ready before they book something. I guarantee you, this webinar right now that we're listening to right now and that I'm doing would not be happening right now if Sam and I hadn't said last week we're doing. No, it wasn't even last week. I think it was Sunday. It might have been like, I think it was 5 days ago. Sam and I said, we're doing this webinar. I'm putting it out there. Go. Right? And that's the only reason this thing happened, because I've been thinking about this for a long time, but there's something magical that happens when you actually put something on a calendar and you have some accountability around it. So if you really want things to happen, tell people you're going to do something, invite them to whatever this thing is, whether it's a call or event or whatever, and you will get in motion. That's the difference between standing at the edge of the pool wondering if the water's cold and if you can swim or not versus jumping in. And once you're in the water, now all you're concerned about is how can I swim? That's what happens when you really truly commit yourself and put something in motion. So that's the best thing anybody can do, from my experience, in making something happen, is book it. The second thing I learned is I had all kinds of massive exposures. I don't remember, I don't think there were any newspaper people at the event, but it gave me some clout for like publicity, and people started talking about it, the next day and in the weeks later. So it was great exposure to do that. And then also, actually, hang on a sec. I think I skipped a slide. Sorry. Okay, I must have not. Oh, here it was. So after that event, I realized how important that exposure was and how important events are. So the next month, really right away, I started speaking locally to everyone I could about anything at all. And that was so important for me. I called the Kiwanis Club. I called the local um, business networking chapters. I called the Chamber of Commerce. I called the Boys and Girls Club. I called schools. I sent out a letter to all the high schools in my area, and I said, I'll come and speak to your kids for free. I was wanting to get out there and talk to basically anybody. Now, at the time, I didn't really know what my message was. So I didn't have clarity around who it is, like a an ideal target or anything like that. So if you do have that clarity and rock solid what you want to talk about, then you might not have as much of a shotgun approach as I did, where you just blast invitations everywhere about anything at all. But I still highly suggest you open up your focus a little bit so that you can get out there and speak, right? And so I spoke at schools, I spoke in somebody's house, I spoke in gymnasiums, like people that are doing like the PTA kind of groups. I mean, I just spoke everywhere I could. And some of the learnings I learned with all of that is, number one, I just practiced. I heard what I said, and it was like I was listening to my message, and I was also listening to people's responses to my message, right? So that was huge because it allowed me to watch my message sort of evolve, and that was really important for me to just continue to hear what I'm most passionate about, what people are most interested in. It also gave me a lot of exposure. I've already talked about that. And it gave me a ton of referrals. So almost every single time I spoke somewhere, somebody in the crowd came up to me and said, I want to introduce you to so and so. And that's how I spoke at this school that I remember. And at that school, I was introduced to another principal at another school. And I went in, and so I mean, the line of referrals as you just kind of chase the paths that will open up is really powerful. But even if you don't get all those referrals, and and I wasn't selling anything at any of these events, these are all just like free events, and they're dealing with organizations, and they don't have money to pay you, but they also don't have a lot of red tape. I mean, you might call them up. So what I did is I literally got my phone book out and I called them up, and I said, "Do you guys bring in speakers? And here's my idea. I talk about goal setting. I talk about this. Do any of those things sound good to you? Would that be interesting for your group? Or is there any theme that you would like me to speak about?" And I just called them up and asked them if I could come speak. And sometimes they would say, yes, can you do Thursday? And this was like Monday, right, or Tuesday. So sometimes they'll just grab on to you because they want this kind of information. And there you go. There you go out there and you have a chance to hone your craft. You get to speak in front of people, and you just get better and better and better. So I really advocate this for everybody, not only for the possibility that something is actually going to hit for you and you're going to create some business out of it, but even if that never happens, just the polishing up is so important, and the practicing is so important. So that's one of the best things I think anybody can do, is just get out there and start speaking locally. Now, a couple months later, this is going back to the story that I put a pause on earlier. A couple months later, I got back in touch, or they contacted me. I don't remember how it happened, with the Mary Kay ladies, and I went and did an event in April of 2006. And it was a Saturday event. There were like 120 women in the room, and they were all training. And they brought me in, and I did an hour long keynote for them. And it was called the MVPs of Success. It had nothing to do with their business. I mean, it was all mindset, mindset, vision, and persistence. That was the MVPs. But I didn't know anything about them, and I didn't know anything about their business. I didn't know anything about their products. But I loved the energy, and I loved the atmosphere. I loved the environment, and they liked what I had to say. And so in 2006, April of 2006, what I realized, what I decided is I want to really focus on these people. I loved the hunger that they had, and I really wanted to just hone in on these people. So I picked, now I didn't have this knowledge, I intuitively did this. I've heard people at the time talk about ideal market and stuff like that, but it wasn't really intentional. Or at least I didn't realize how profound it was going to be, and nobody was really telling me this is exactly what I have to do. But I guess intuitively or something, I picked what ended up being my seeker at the time. And what I did is I focused on these Mary Kay ladies, right? Mary Kay beauty consultants, and I put what right there because I would have never, ever, ever predicted that. And if somebody would have predicted that for me, when I was in college or something, they would have had at least a debate on their hand, if not a fight, right? I'm not going to be talking to a bunch of Mary Kay ladies. It's not who I am. It's not what I want. But I listened to where I was being pulled, because a lot of times your seeker will choose you before you choose them. And when you hear yourself talk, and when you pay attention to the market, and you've got your feelers out, so to speak, you might catch the message of where you should be going, instead of you just trying to, out of your intellect, using your brain to decide, to figure out cerebrally who you're going to speak to. Now, I'm not saying there's no merit in that, but a lot of times people get chosen. And in this case, I got chosen. And on some level, that it was just part of my journey that I would have never, ever thought of, but I got chosen. Now, this is such a huge turning point in my business. When I got chosen and I decided to really focus on the Mary Kay world, all kinds of positive things happened. And what I was able to do is I was able to start branding. And what I've learned is that branding requires specifics. It is very difficult to build a brand with anything that's just vague, right? So I started to create products, which are critical. I started to create websites just for them. I found sites on the internet that they frequent, and I was advertising on those sites. I was able to find them in social media. I was going to blogs. I was doing joint ventures with other people that serve that particular market, right? I mean, the bottom line in this industry is that you need an audience to serve and to sell to. And the best way to build an audience is to get clear on an individual seeker and then go deep. And a lot of people resist this. I resisted it for a long time. Most of my clients resist this, but it's much better to go deep than to go wide, meaning how many people you're going to try to help. If you're the kind of person that wants to help the housewife and wants to help the real estate investor and wants to help the life coach and wants to help people lose weight, you can also teach people how to change light bulbs. You're going to get nobody. The more vague you are, the less attractive you'll be. But this is counterintuitive. The more specific you are, the more attractive you'll be, even to people that don't match your specific person that you're going after. And I did a whole, 90-minute call on that before, so that's a little bit more extensive than I want to use the time for on this webinar. But this is one of the most critical mistakes that people make, is not identifying a person so they can go deep. Instead of you trying to figure out how many different people can I serve, I'd rather you figure out how many different ways can I serve this one kind of person. And I'm telling you, that's where the clicking point is. That's what I teach, is you've got to get to the clicking point. That point where everything just clicks. And once you find that clicking point and things are starting to go for you, now that's when you can really put your pedal to the metal, so to speak, and that's when you can scale up in a real big way. And I'll show you some of the numbers here in a little bit, but it wasn't until April of 2006 that we started to do some pretty decent numbers, right? So I think in April 2006, I think we did like $6,000 or something like that. And up until then, it was like 1,000, 2,000. And that was a big jump at the time for me. And it was because I identified this single person, right? So it's critical to have focus around this, and laser focus, being able to identify what this person wants. One of the most powerful things that I teach is that your best asset, your most valuable asset as a coach, is the perspective of your seeker. That is the most valuable asset you will ever have, is to get inside the mind of that person. When you know who they are, when you know what their fears are, when you know what their desires are, when you know what they've tried before, when you know what they'll buy, then this game becomes easy. But if you can't get inside their head and all you're doing is guessing and hoping that they'll buy things that you create, this game will be incredibly difficult. And that is not possible unless you start studying the mind of a single person. Now, once you build a business around a single person, what's important is that what's important to understand is that if you want to then serve somebody else, you can. I'm not saying you're going to serve one person for the rest of your life. There's no way that's going to happen. But you've got to have the clarity of focus in order to build a significant business first. And then once you create that, then you can open up another conversation, sometimes another website, and another message with another person. So you can have two conversations going at the same time, just not together. Don't try to speak to two people at the same time, right? But if you speak to two people in separate conversations because you've got your businesses and systems set up properly, that's totally fine. Right now, I'll tell you, I have 5 separate seekers, but I speak to each one of them separately. I would be doing a disservice to speak to the parents the same way I'm speaking to you right now, because none of this stuff matters. And if I tried to water this down, pull off some of the details so that it would matter to the parents, then it wouldn't matter to you anymore. So the more watered down and vague your content is, the less valuable it is to anybody. So I want you to go deep. You can go deep with multiple people, just don't do it at the same time. So that's a really big piece. But I also want you to pick one and just focus on them first. In other words, don't try to ride 5 different horses at the same time. Get good riding one horse. Once you get good at that, you got some systems in place, then you can open up another one. So do it incrementally, right? So when I teach people how to create their seeker, how to identify their seeker, I'm not telling you to identify one person and exclude everybody else. I'm just telling you to put them in line. Who are you going to go after first? And after that, who are you going to go after next? And that is probably the single biggest thing that led to the clicking point in my business. And this is a huge marketing piece. What I just put up now is that people will buy from you when they know that you understand them. They won't buy from you when they understand you. They'll buy from you when they know you understand them. And there's no way you can understand them unless you study them individually. So I could go on and on and on. Like I said, I've done entire calls on just this one piece. But this is really, really critical. Now, I'm going to give you this template here. It might be a little bit tough for you to see. The font is a little small. But I want to give you this, what I call a market matrix, to help you start thinking about who you can go after first. I did this process with a guy named Romeo Marquez, and I'll put up a slide from him a little bit later. And he was, he had 4 or 5 different people, and he was trying to go after them all at the same time, and he didn't really know who he was going to go after. And we did this marketing matrix, and at the end of it, it was so clear where his energy should be focused. It was so clear where the money was going to be made. And so what you do is you put the different markets on the left-hand side, however many you have. You only see 4 boxes here. It could be more, could be less, however many you have. And then you assess each one of those markets by these 5 different measurements, basically. And so the first one is, how much money can you make in that market? Some markets you can make a ton of money, in some markets you can't. And what you do is you rank order these. So whichever one, let's say you have 3 markets over here on the left side in the gray, whichever one you can make the most money in, they get a number 1, because you're comparing them to the other markets, basically. So you order them. So that's number 1, and then second most is number 2, and then the market where you can make the least amount of money, you put a number 3, right? And then the time it will take to succeed. Is this something that you can get up and running quickly in a month? Will it take 8 months? It's different. Depends on how you're going to go after it. And I don't want you to spend a whole lot of time on this. I want this to be an intuitive process. I don't want you to spend a whole day creating a business plan for 3 different markets so you can assess which one is going to take 9 months versus 3 months. That's not the point. But think about it a little bit. Don't get yourself stuck here, but think about it. How much time is it going to take for me to succeed? And again, you're going to order them 1, 2, 3, or 4, 5, however many you have. Confidence and knowledge means, how much confidence do you have right now? Or are you going to have to go do a bunch of research about the market? In other words, do you know what they want right now? Could you create a product for them right now? Could you do a seminar? Could you do a phone call? Or do you need to do some more research? So whichever one you have the most amount of confidence and knowledge about and you can serve right now gets number 1, and then you order them. The fourth one here is passion. Whichever one you're passionate about the most gets number 1, right? And well, I'll explain how this works in a second. And then the last one is ease of that market or lifestyle that you can create, and you can kind of put those together. Is it going to be simple to put a game plan together and put a business system together? And what kind of lifestyle can you create? A lot of people going into certain markets, and their lifestyle is going to require them to be on the road. It's going to require them to spend a lot of time on the computer or whatever. And you just have to know as much as you can what that lifestyle is going to be. Because if you go after something that you can make a whole lot of money at, but it's not going to give you the lifestyle that you want, that's a dead end road, right? At some point in time, that's not going to work. Either you'll never make it work because you'll sabotage yourself, or if you do make it work, it'll pull you away from your priorities, and that's not going to be fun either. So what you do is, once you assess all of these things, then I should have, if I'd have thought about it, I would have taken a picture of Romeo's. So it was really cool. So you're going to have all these numbers, and then you add them up from left to right, and you're going to have these totals over here on the right hand side. I don't have a column on this page for the totals. You're going to have a total over there, and whichever one has the lowest number is probably the market you should go after. That doesn't mean you have to, but this gives some kind of intellectual process to that intuitive feeling of who should I serve first, right? So it's a great way to kind of justify where you want to go. Maybe start thinking about something if your intuition will pull you to a certain market. But this is a really powerful exercise that you can help help yourself decide what market you're going to go after. So hopefully that makes sense. I'm not going to do any examples or anything right now, just because we just don't have time. But I hope that makes sense. And I want to share with you something that Alyssa sent me, and it was because we're talking about your seeker, and she said when I identified my seeker, it gave my business a jolt of clarity, momentum, and confidence that was the turning point for my cash flow. And she said within a couple of weeks, she was actually working with her seeker, and all kinds of other leads and referrals began to come in and so forth. And that's what happens when you get that kind of clarity, you start to become more attractive. All right, so back to my journey. So I picked this seeker, and then a couple months later, I decided I wanted to go do some live events. So I was going out and I was speaking on other people's stages and at other people's events in the Mary Kay world. So I was going out and doing more training events, and I was speaking anywhere that I could. I mean, I was speaking in houses, I was speaking at their businesses, I was speaking at the live events. I was going anywhere that I could go that had my seeker, because now I became focused on where can I find these people? Where can I get a collection of my seekers in a room, right? And so live events is where it's at. I mean, and with live events, you're always going to get the best sales conversions. When you get on a stage somewhere, you become an expert. You're always going to sell more stuff. Your conversions are going to be way higher than if you do anything on webinars or online or anything like that. So live events are so critical. I really got the power of a live event. And that doesn't necessarily mean a stage at a seminar in a hotel. It just means a live event. I've had some huge success, like I said, going into a person's house, and they just had a team meeting with 10 people, and I was there and I was selling stuff, right? And that's another key learning. You have to have products. I was going in, I remember this particular meeting specifically. I went in, I was standing in this lady's living room. She had fold out chairs, just foldable chairs, maybe, I don't know, 10 or 12, just in their living room. I mean, it felt kind of strange, but I was just standing in front of them and I was talking and I was fired up. And then I sold stuff, and I was selling a $49 CD called Erase the Waste, all about how to get rid of limiting beliefs. $49. In this market, they buy CDs for $1. And I was coming in and I was selling mine for $49. And it was just a CD. It cost me $1 to make. I sold it for 49 bucks because it had real value in it. And the only reason I say that, I bring up that example, because when you have products, you can make money. You can actually create some transactions and you can start selling stuff. But you can't sell stuff if you don't have stuff, right? So that's another really key piece here, is you've got to have products. And I think too many people, wait to design the perfect product. And I mean, if there's one thing that I'm really good at, it is creating products. I mean, I literally have hundreds of audio products, and the more audio products you have, the more you'll learn. And just because you do a product doesn't mean you ever have to sell it either. But I want you to just start thinking about product creation. If you can create products, then you will be able to sell something, right? You just can't sell something that hasn't been created. So that's another huge learning um, in the live event arena. So I did that for about half a year, and what I found was that I felt kind of restricted. I was I was speaking on other people's stages. I was concerned that they wouldn't like me. I was concerned to say stuff that the organizer would get angry at and never bring me back again. But I felt muted to an extent because I wanted to say certain things that I didn't feel like I had permission to say. They were too edgy. So in February of 2007, I decided I'm going to put on my own event, because nobody's pulling me off stage at my event. Nobody's telling me when I have to finish. Nobody's telling me what I have to say or not say. Nobody's telling me whether I can sell or not. If I can get people at my events, now I run the show. Now I own everything. I'm in 100% control of everything. And so I did that. And eventually we played around with some messaging and so forth. And what became a big hit in that market is a 1-day event that I did called Stop the Sabotage. And the reason it became such a big hit, now there were several titles before I got to this one, but I kept studying my seeker. And after about a year or so, I realized that this is it for them. This is part of the conversation going on in their head. They want to stop sabotaging themselves. So when I came out with a program called Stop the Sabotage, it attracted them. They were excited about it. And then I was able to do everything that I want. Like I said, I had all the freedom. And the other thing that I learned is that the big money is deep in the funnel. And I want to spend a little bit talking about this because one of the biggest mistakes that I see coaches make is they try to make all of their profit up front. And that's a big mistake because it's harder to sell at the beginning of a funnel because they don't know you. Um, they don't know your energy. They don't know your content. They don't know if they like you or not. So if you have to sell somebody, if you make somebody pay before they learn anything about you, it's possible, but that is a hard sell. It's very hard. You've got to have longer sales messages. You've got to have sales pages. You've got to have people manning the phones. You're going to have to answer questions. You've got to have a lot more set up to have people pay a lot of money in the beginning of a funnel. So if you're trying to make a bunch of profit at the beginning of a funnel at a seminar, let's say, that's going to be very, very difficult. I'm going to break down my Stop the Sabotage funnel in a moment here. But I want you to understand that the deeper into a funnel that people get, the more they trust you, the more they like you. Otherwise, they wouldn't be this far into the funnel. And the more that they like you and the more that they trust you, the more willing they are now to buy you or to buy something from you. And so if you have the mindset to delay your profits, that doesn't mean make no profit, but delay your profits deeper into your funnel, they will be magnified many, many, many times over. So what I mean is that if you have a funnel that says, people go to a free event and then they go to a seminar and then they buy a product and then they go to a bigger seminar and then they get private coaching or something like that, you can you can charge a lot more money for that private coaching at the end of that funnel than you could early in that funnel. You just couldn't do it. It's going to be very, very difficult. But if you're able to delay the profits, the big money is at the end of the funnel. Now, again, it's not all about money, but obviously money is a big piece of business. You got to create cash flow. So this is a fundamental shift that I think most people need to make. And what I see a lot of people doing is trying to make too much money, too much profit up front. And because they don't have the certainty that's necessary to even sell very well, they fail. They don't do very well at the front because they don't have a mastery over their language. They don't have mastery of their message. They don't know exactly what their seeker wants. They haven't put in enough time and enough energy to be able to sell at the beginning of the funnel. So at the beginning, I suggest you let people in jumping over the smallest um like level. I'm missing my word here, but like don't make them jump through a very big hoop. Make that level of commitment relatively low, especially with all the trust issues that I was talking about earlier. And then you can make a lot of money on the back end. So let me show you this Stop the Sabotage campaign. This is early 2007 again. And this is now this evolved over the course of several months, but this is where it ended up. I was doing 8-hour events all over the United States and Canada. And I was flying there and I was booking the hotel rooms and I was paying all of my expenses. I have only been paid a speaking fee twice in 9 years. No, 3 times. The first one was $50 for a lady, and I came in and trained her team of 5 insurance agents. The next one was $5,000 to go in and do a seminar for a direct sales company. And then the next one is this India one, and it's $10,000 plus some other stuff on the end. But the reason I say that is almost all of my events, other than those three, I didn't get paid anything by anybody. I went in and I took all the risk on myself, but it gave me control, like I was saying earlier. So here's what I would do. I would go in, I'd pay $1,000, $2,000 for a hotel room, for AV equipment, for flights, for my rooms, for everything. All the expenses were on me. I was investing thousands of dollars for each of these events. And look at what I did. I charged $20. Now, part of that was because I didn't really value my message, but the other part of it was what I've been talking about. I wanted to give them something low, a low hurdle that they didn't have to think much about. You'll notice about me the more that you hear me present or anything. My philosophy is make things no brainer for people. And I wanted this to be a no-brainer. An 8-hour event for $20. I had so many people say, I only came because it only cost $20 and I want to see what you were all about. And for 8 hours for $20, they said I wouldn't have come if it was, $70. But after they got there, they say I would have paid $200 for this thing. They see the value, but they only see the value at the end of it. Right? They don't see that value in the beginning, and I don't have to spend much time selling an 8-hour event for $20. I was filling these rooms by sending CDs out and just having people hand out CDs. They would listen to a CD. They're like, $20, shoot, I'm good. Let's go. Let's try it. And I was getting people in the room. That $20 included lunch. Now, if any of you've ever put on events, you can't give people lunch for anything less than $20 most of the time. You can give them like a buffet and like some fruit and some chips, and it'll cost like $16. So I was deep in the hole out of the gate. Even when I was losing money if they attended, right? As soon as somebody paid $20 and I had to give them lunch, I'm out $5. Most of my lunches were like $25, right? But there was a reason for it. I wanted to keep them on campus. I didn't want them to leave and then maybe not come back or come back late. So I was willing to keep them in a controlled environment. I wanted to keep them on campus. Anyway, so I was selling a $20 event, 8 hours. But here's what I sold at the end. Now, I gave them a ton of value. At the end, I sold products. Usually it was about $100 or less. I sold a 3-day follow-up breakthrough seminar, and I would actually go back to their hometown to do the seminar. So if I did an event in Vancouver and I sold a breakthrough seminar, 6 weeks to 8 weeks later, I would go back to Vancouver, which means all of my expenses again, all the flights and all that stuff. But that's the way that I was doing it, and it worked for this market. So I would sell this 3-day breakthrough change your life seminar, $300. That's it. I wanted it to be a no-brainer, and I also knew my market a little bit because they go to Mary Kay World. They go to events, for a lot cheaper than that, and it just worked, right? And then I also sold private coaching. Now, eventually, I'll tell you this story a little bit later. Eventually, I got to the point where I was selling private coaching at $2,500. So look at the disparity here. A $20 ticket price, people will pay $20 to get in the door. 8 hours later, they will pay $2,500. And they did it all the time. They did it all the time. But if I was to try to sell them $2,500 before that 8-hour event, it would be so much more difficult. So at these events, I got to the point where I knew that I was going to make about $1,000 for every single person that showed up. If I had 40 people there, I was going to make anywhere between $35,000 and $45,000 on the back end in a room full of 40 people, you guys. And that's what I've learned. I'm not trying to say that because, I was a genius. I wasn't a genius, but I learned. I had the guts to take action, and I learned over the course of many months and many, many events how this game works. And so that's why I am really, really passionate about having the profits be later on in the funnel. So the question to you is, would you invest? And I'm not saying you should invest. Now, I would not say to follow that. And eventually I started charging $67 for a ticket price, and I didn't have any lost revenue up front, but I was established in the market. I knew how to do all kinds of other stuff. and and eventually I wasn't losing anything on the front end. But would you invest a couple $1,000 to get 40 people in a room and then create a $10,000, $20,000, $40,000 payday at the end? $10,000 payday is 4 people investing $2,500 for coaching. And if you think they won't invest $2,500 for coaching, then you're wrong. I don't know another way to put it. You're wrong. People will. The right people will. As long as you create enough value and you know how to position it, and you know how to offer it and all that kind of stuff, the right people will. Now, I want to also tell you that later on in this very same market right now, I do very little coaching in the Mary Kay world, but right now, back then, this is $2,500 for a 6-month coaching program, right? So people were paying $2,500. They were getting an hour a week for 6 months for $2,500. Later on, I changed this price to $3,000 and I changed it to 4 months. And then later on after that, it was $3,500 and I changed it and I kept it at 4 months. And the reason I say that is because I want you to understand the value is really what people will invest in. It doesn't matter how you structure your coaching program. It is really all about value, right? So that's what I want you to think about when it comes to creating all of these campaigns. Now, I just got a comment on here. I don't know when it came in, but the comment is basically, we're seeing a lot of kind of about you guys and not much about what we should do when we first start going out to get coaching clients. What I want to teach you, the reason I'm doing this is because I want to teach you the concepts. And the concept is like this main concept is if you get an audience, you can make a lot of money on the back end. So this is just an example of what you can do with live events. And remember earlier I said, I don't know exactly what you're going to be able to do because I don't know your specific market yet. I don't know your specific inventory, emotional inventory. I don't know exactly what you can do, but I want you to take the concepts and then you can apply them to your life, or we can help apply them to your life and your business. But this concept is gigantic. That's why I'm spending the time and giving you some of these details so that I want to get your mind going. I don't want you to duplicate this, but I want to get your mind going of how can I take this concept and how can I implement it in my market, right? So let's keep going. I think I have a couple more things here. In 2007, in August of 2007, that's when I created the Whatever It Takes coaching program. And what I realized was I had been doing coaching with a lot of people for a long time, and I wasn't really enjoying it. And people were getting some decent results, but there just wasn't a whole lot of passion around it, right? And so I remember I was in Vancouver, I was going to an event, and I thought, who do I actually want to work with, right? What I want to work with, or who I want to work with, is somebody who has the right mindset. They have the investment mentality, and what they have is the willingness to do whatever it takes, right? So when I thought that, this was in the morning of an event, I realized that I immediately that day created the Whatever It Takes program, and later that at the end of that event, I sold the Whatever It Takes coaching package. And the Whatever It Takes coaching package was such a significant jump for me because what I realized is that when you put out a strong magnet, you will attract different people. Up until that point, I hadn't even clarified who I wanted to work with, and I hadn't put out a strong magnet, and I was charging low dollar amounts. As soon as I said, I want people who are going to invest more money. Up until that point, people were paying, I think, $300 a month. And all of a sudden, I'm asking them to pay $2,500 up front with no, like in a 6-month package. Before it was month to month. And as soon as I did that, and I said, you know what, this is who I want to work with. And I would tell people, you are the right fit for me if you fit this bill, and you're not if you don't, and either one is okay. My goal was to get 20 coaching clients over the course of the year at $2,500 a person. Because if I get 100 or I'm sorry, 20 coaching clients, that'd be $50,000 in revenue. That'd be great. I'm happy with that. And what happened is I had 20 coaching clients in 8 days, two events, 20 coaching clients, and they started to, I mean, they just started to swarm at this offer because it was a much bigger magnet, right? So again, the concept of when you're really clear on who you want and you paint that picture and you say, listen, this is who I can best help. If you're this person, then let's play, and this is what it costs. If you're not this person, and that's cool, then I'm not the right person for you. You will attract more people that way than if you just try to talk everybody into coaching with you. So again, huge, huge learning for me, and that's another thing that takes a lot of coaches a long time to ever get, if they ever do get it. So I want you to create a strong magnet, be very clear about who it is that you're working with, and charge some high prices, right? And finally, I don't know if this is finally, but everything is about value. If you provide high value for people, they'll pay. Now, let me get into a few jumps that I made in my business. Now, this is a screenshot of the 18 months that I told you about from June 2006 to November of 2007. So you can see the numbers there. You can see, what it adds up to the middle, down the bottom. This is only the online income. Actually, at that time, we were taking a lot more checks and a lot more cash when people were paying at the event. So it's a little bit more than this, maybe 10, 20K more. But this is what, you can see. And again, I'm not trying to do this as proof to impress you, but just that there's some reality here. And I'm all about transparency. I'll show you exactly what I've done. I'll show you the numbers that came in. I'll tell you about the numbers that went out, because I'll also tell you that out of that $302,000, we didn't put a whole lot of that in our bank account. The money itself, we had a lot of profit in our business, but we also carried about $300,000 or $400,000 in credit card debt before I got into this business with other businesses that I had lost a bunch of money with, or lit our life savings on fire and just put everything on credit cards and stuff like that. So we were actually using this business to try to cut down, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of debt. And that was, well, who cares about, whether I would advise that or not? I'm not here to advise you on your financial issues, but we probably paid about $120,000 to our credit cards over that time period. So not all of it is profit, obviously, and there are other real business expenses, but I just want to be open and honest with you. And I want to share with you 4 big key jumps for me. I think I alluded to this one. I think I misspoke, though. I thought it was in April, but it was September of 2006 is when we made a big jump. And that's when I started to advertise on Google. Once I started advertise on Google and I started to build a list of people coming in and giving them free stuff, then our income went really, it what is it, like tripled, maybe even almost 4 times there. Um, because yeah, 4 times, almost 5 times there, 4.5 times. I don't know. I taught math too, but I'm not doing this quickly enough. It multiplied by a factor of 4 or 5 because we had a bigger list, and when you have a bigger audience, you can sell more stuff to more people, period. So I think any business, especially nowadays, has to include some kind of online advertising, some kind of online list building. And, I've learned so much about that since then, right? So that was my Google boost. The next boost came between January and February of 2007. I already alluded to this, but this is when we started to do my own events. When I started to take over my events, I started to be able to talk as long as I want and sell whatever I want. Then the revenue started to jump pretty significantly. So you saw we were about 5 or 6K the 4 months before that, and then we hit 12, and then we hit 16, and then we hit 30. And once we got to 30, we averaged right around 30K all the way through. You can see a dip in the summer months because in the Mary Kay world, people are at their training events and so forth. But that's when we really started to get some significant money coming in, is when we took over the events. Now, there were more expenses, as I explained, but there was so much more freedom and so much more power in what we were able to do. Another jump that I had is in between those 2 months right there, between March and April of 2007, is when I started to sell a little bit more of the higher ticket private coaching. Now, I didn't start selling the whatever it takes yet at this point. That wasn't until August, but I started to sell a little bit more higher ticket private coaching, even though it wasn't all the way what I just explained a few moments ago. Once I started to sell some of the higher ticket coaching, then obviously the dollar amounts went up significantly. And then finally, this last jump is really something that I learned. Here's another really important concept for you to get. And this goes to the whole idea of deeper in the funnel concept. I offered the whatever it takes coaching program at a 3-day live breakthrough event for the first time. What I had been doing up until then is only offering the whatever it takes program at my 1-day events, because my thinking was when people go to the 3-day events, I've already given them everything I can. They're not going to want to buy more coaching because they're full, right? I've given them everything I can. And so I had 38 people at this 3-day event one time in September. It was in Texas, and I offered the whatever it takes program at the end, thinking that maybe 4 or 5 people would jump on it. I had 20 people that submitted an application after 3 days of breakthroughs. And what it taught me is that the deeper people go with you, the more they want to continue with you. And I've seen this happen time and time again in my business. So again, I don't want you to have that mistaken thinking of you've got to get people to the higher ticket prices right away. And the further along they go, the less they will want to invest in you. That's what I thought. It's actually the exact opposite. So that month we did really well. We actually did $100,000 in sales that month, but it didn't hit the account because there were people on pay plans and stuff like that. But that totally changed the game for me. So here's what I want you to get. What I want you to get is this process is just that. It's a process. It's a journey. And like I've said a few times, I don't know what that journey is going to look like for you, but I want you to understand how much variation is involved in this process. And when I coach my clients, I try to get them to the clicking point as quickly as we can. When I hit that clicking point, late 2006, early 2007, then it was on, and I said, we did over $300,000. If you take a look at these numbers, almost all of that was in the last 10 months of 2007, over $250,000 in those last 10 months because I hit the clicking point. But you know where most people quit? Most people quit in those first few months. Most people quit sometime before that clicking point because they have false expectations. They're not thinking the right way. So you've got to stay in it until you get to that clicking point. And I promise you, once you find that, once things come together, once you find your seeker, once you know what they want, once you start creating products, once you're able to figure out what websites they're on, once you're able to capture them with lead magnets, and to start building your list, and you start to figure out where they are online and what Facebook groups are they in and what magazines do they look at and what have they tried before. Once you're able to find that clicking point and really hone in on your seeker, lights out. That's when you can take your business and light it on fire. I promise you that. Most people never get there because of all kinds of reasons. I've alluded to a lot of them. Most people never get there. I want your goal. If you're unsatisfied with your business, I want your goal right now to be, how can I get to that clicking point? And that's where all of your focus is. How can I get to the clicking point? Use the market matrix to help you decide where you should go. I teach something called seeker interviews. You interview these seekers and find out what they want, find out what they'll invest in, find out who they don't trust. Like, just find out as much as you can. And when you truly understand the perspective of your seeker, and you can start speaking directly to him or her, and you can start building a brand, and you can start putting websites together that are now talking to them specifically, now you've got a business that you can scale. Now you've got something that you can light on fire. And I promise you, if you are not happy with your business, whether you're brand new or you've been in a few years, I promise you, you don't have the certainty of that clicking point yet. You don't have it yet. Because when you do, or you're just doing something totally wrong. And so usually people don't have the certainty. But if you have the certainty, maybe there's a strategic problem, right? But when you get that certainty and you start and things come together and you start knowing exactly what people want, that's when this whole thing gets crazy fun. Crazy fun. That's when you can write your own ticket. That's when you can control your own schedule. That's when you can decide basically everything. And I'll tell you, it might take a while to get there. It took me about a year to get there. From the very first time that I was out there, just speaking around at different events, and then finally kind of got a soft clarity around Mary Kay. But then, man, when it hit early 2007, boom, that's when it took off. My advice and my hope for you is that you have enough determination that you will not quit until you find that clicking point. And I promise you, no matter how long it takes, no matter what you have to go through, it will be worth it, because once you find that clicking point, everything shifts in your business. I promise you. So I'm going to start wrapping up here. I want you to hear from just a couple people. Jen Wensky, one of my favorite clients and people on the planet, when she got clear about her that clicking point that we just talked about, when she got clear about her seeker and got clear about her coaching packages, then she was able to attract them immediately. She got 10 full-time coaching clients. She had 10 more clients in a group coaching program that she had. She earned over $6,000, and this is all inside of her first 2 months. Now, that's not staggering income. That's more than I made my first 2 months, though. That's for sure, right? And that's real. That's real results. And I don't want you to be chasing these pie in the sky results. I want you to just be real and build a business with the foundation behind it. I mean, what would it be like if you could attract 10 full-time paying clients over the next 2 months? And I'll tell you, Jen was starting at scratch. That was from 0 to 2 months. From the time that she decided she wanted to be a coach, inside of 2 months later, she had 10 full-time clients. She had 10 clients in her coaching program. And I can tell you right now, she's turning business down. That's just the situation that she's in, because she's found that clicking point. So that's what I want you to really truly get off of this webinar. The most important thing I can leave you with is just go, get in motion, do stuff, right? You've got to start pedaling. Once you pedal and you start, your business in motion, you got to keep spinning, and you've just got to jump in. And I said it before, this journey is not going to be easy, but this journey will be worth it. We're talking about playing a big game. We're talking about fundamentally changing the course of your life. We're talking about taking your message and getting it out into the world. We're talking about helping other people change their lives. We're talking about a big game. I am never the guy that will stand up in front of you and say, this game will be easy. But I am the guy that will say, this game will be worth it, and I'll be right next to you if you want us to help, locked arm in arm, to help you figure this out and shorten your learning curve, right? So that's how I want you to either get into this industry. That's the mindset I want you to have getting into this industry, or that's the mindset I want you to clarify if you've already been in this industry, that it is worth it, but you've got to lock your focus on a single thing. And if you haven't found it, I'm telling you from a strategic standpoint, it's that clicking point. You've got to find that thing to where you can now scale up your business. I mentioned Romeo a little bit earlier, and he has this tendency, as he said, of overwhelming himself with all kinds of projects at once. And we went through that market matrix, and then we created a strategy, and he started to get in motion. When he pulled all these other things off his plate, he said, you know what I need to do right now is I need to get this book out. And he became a #1 Amazon bestseller inside of 24 hours. And he really just talks about how important it is to have somebody help him get that clarity. And when you're an entrepreneur, we tend to have this great asset, but it's also a liability called seeing opportunity everywhere. When you see opportunity everywhere, you're in danger of trying to find opportunity everywhere and trying to chase opportunity everywhere. So you've got to have clarity. You've got to be able to focus on a single thing and get it done. In our business, Sam and I, we talk about getting things done, not getting things started. I spent years getting things started. I want you to get things done. Something done, implemented, is way better than 10 things started. So I want you to create the focus, get things in motion so that you can start attracting people. Pooja is one of my clients in India. And what I love about this is it really speaks to the lifestyle piece. She said she's doubled her income and spoke in front of a bunch of people and all that. And honestly, I hear all that stuff and I smile, but that's not what gets me jazzed. What gets me jazzed is she says she has the courage to overcome a lot of her fears like bungee jumping and skydiving. But what she really cherishes the most is becoming a better parent and becoming a better wife and a daughter. And in that process, just living a life of joy and peace. And that's what I'm all about, right? Remember my dad's last words, be, do, live. This is what, not only do we have the ability to create that for ourselves, but we have the ability as a coach to create that for other people. And if that doesn't drive you, if that doesn't touch your heart, if that doesn't get you excited about being significant in somebody else's life to the point that you will help them break through a block, or you will help them fix a bad relationship or a marriage, or you will help them love themselves, or you will help them make money and move into the house of their dreams, if that doesn't get you motivated and excited and inspired from within, then I got to be honest, this industry is probably not for you, because that's fulfillment. That's where your fulfillment will be, and that's what you can deliver to your coaches. So at this point, I want to thank you for the time. I'll get to some Q&A here in a moment, but at this point, you really have two choices from a business standpoint. And one choice is to just, do what most people do. I hope you don't take this avenue and just try to figure it out on your own and try to be the world's first success story in history on the road call, do it myself. Or join somebody, set yourself up to succeed and get some mentoring and get some coaching from people who've traveled down that path, and most importantly, have made the mistakes that you need to avoid. Now, if you are, if you've liked what you've heard, if you resonate with me, if you resonate with our message, you resonate with Sam, and you want us to help, we've got some options, right? So I'm going to share with you some of the coaching options that we have if you're interested in going further along this journey with us. If not, awesome. I hope you got some value out of this webinar. But if you're the kind of person that wants to, jump in and lock arms with those of us that can help you shorten your learning curve and get there quicker, then here are some avenues for you. One option is to do private coaching with just me personally. And I've set aside 4 hours in my weekly schedule to take on 1 hour private coaching client. So basically four clients. This would be 1 hour every week. You will get monthly access to our client only laser coaching calls. This is a group call, but I get on the phone. I just answer any question that's up, and you'll hear me answer other people's questions. We'll get on the websites, and I'll just be there and give everything I possibly can to whatever issues that you're having, whether it's a marketing issue, an inner game issue, whatever it is. And those are really valuable calls. You're also going to get unlimited digital access to all of our products that we have in our archives across the board. Well over $2,500 worth of products. And you can use those products for yourself, or you can use them as a model, of what products that you can possibly create in building your business. You get access to the full-time coach project, and that's the strategy of so many of the things that I've been talking about. This is a program that I did last year, and it's the strategies. There's 16 hour plus long modules to walk you through all the different pieces and components of building a business. It's finding your purpose and doing that market matrix and finding your seeker and doing seeker interviews and designing your coaching programs and designing your websites and social media. I mean, there's just a wealth of information, probably about 50 different mini modules inside of those 16 calls that you'll get access to. And that's a support resource for you. As you go along your journey, we're going to be telling you what to go and what to listen to and what to dive into and what exercises you can do to help you, build your business. That's the strategy piece around this journey. You're also going to get what I call glass house access to everything in our business. I'm an open book. You want to see the systems that I'm running? Ask me. I'll show you everything. You want to see the payroll? You want to know how much I'm paying myself, how much we're paying other people? I don't care about sharing that information because I don't really have anything to hide. And I want you to see everything you possibly can so that you have the best possible scenario to succeed. So I'm not doing this out of ego. I'm not trying to impress anybody, but I want to say, listen, this is what I've done. You probably won't do it exactly like I did. You'll do it differently. You have to do it differently because you're not like me. You're not the same person. You'll do it better, faster, bigger, smaller. I don't know. But I want to show you everything that I've done so you can get all kinds of ideas and inspiration. So I give my private clients glass house access. You also get my personal cell phone if you have any kind of emergencies in between our coaching calls. There are 4 slots available. If at any point in time, if I have those 4 slots full, then there's just going to be a waiting list. And the investment for this particular program, one-on-one with me personally, 1 hour a week, is $19.97 a month. So it's basically $2,000 a month. Now, this is a month by month basis. And in certain cases, I would coach you to not ever do month by month coaching. But in this industry, with the kind of concepts that we want, this is one of the rare places where it actually fits to do this. And at any point in time, when you're not getting the value, then I want you to be able to say, okay, enough is enough. This month is good, and I'm not coming back next month. And this is the only industry where I do month to month coaching, and I have that sort of out clause every single month. And because I want you to be getting your money's worth, I want you to be getting the value. And at any point in time, if you're not, I don't want you to feel like you're locked into some 6-month coaching program that you've outgrown 2 months in, or you realize is not for you, or whatever. So I want this to be really a month to month commitment for you. And some of you only need 4 hours worth of my coaching, and that's great. And if 4 hours is fulfillment for you, awesome. And some of you are the very early stages, and we're going to help you create the income, and hopefully your coaching will pay for itself in a very short period of time. And who knows how far we can go, right? I mean, I've had coaches for years in the past because I was able to grow with them. So that is option number one. That's private coaching with me personally, and only me personally. Now, if you want to register for any of these, the website is 300kblueprint.com/coaching. Hey, Sam, if you're able to, can you type that in our chat session back here? Just type in that that URL so that if anybody wants to go there, they can click on it. Because as I go through my slides, it's going to disappear again.
Yeah, you got it.
300kblueprint.com/coaching. Now, option number two, if that's too much of an investment or you've had enough of me, option number two is you can coach with Sam. Now, understand that Sam has a wealth of experience and knowledge in this industry, and he was at the front end of many campaigns and marketing funnels and designs and all that stuff with Jack Canfield's company. And so Sam has just an incredible amount of knowledge, and Sam coaches me on a lot of these things too. So he is a highly credible individual in this particular arena. I mean, this is what, and just wait till you hear Sam light up when you start even talking about campaigns and what perspective do people have, and what if people come in and they're looking for this, and what if this is what's missing, and how can we amplify this, and how can we maximize this. I mean, Sam's knowledge is just second to none, and that's why we're partners. So you also have the option of just coaching with Sam. Now, this is going to be a hybrid. What this looks like is you'll coach with Sam once a week, once an hour a week, and then once every month, I will get on with you. So the three of us will come together, and I'll be on that call every fourth week with you. And Sam will be there too. So the three of us will go on, and I'll just add whatever I can, plus to the agreement. All of these other things are basically the same. I think there's one or two things that it's not the same. You get access to the laser coaching calls. You get unlimited digital access. You get access to the full-time coach project. You get the glass house access to everything in our business. You don't get the private cell phone access. And I thought there might have been one other thing. I'm not sure, but this is what you get with this option B or option 2 coaching with hybrid with Sam and I. There are 6 slots available that we created in our calendar. Again, there might be a waiting list if we fill up. And the investment on this one is half the amount. So it's $9.97 a month. Same setup, month to month basis. At any point in time, if you feel like you're outgrowing our coaching, or you had enough, or it's not working for you, or whatever, no harm, no foul, and we can just call it quits. Same thing, Blue 100 or Blue 100, 300kblueprint.com/coaching. It has all three options on that same page. And the third option is test drive. We know some people want to get a little bit more of a feeling of who their coaches might be, or they just don't want to invest that money yet, or they just want a really concentrated coaching, and that's fine too. So you have a test drive option. What that is, it's a 1 hour business growth strategy session with Sam and I. So you get both of us for an hour. Now, this is not going to be a selling call. A lot of people will get you on the phone, and for an hour, they'll light up your pain and they'll ask you how it's going to feel when you achieve these results, and they won't give you any coaching until you sign up. That's not what this is. Well, first of all, you're going to pay for this, but this is coaching. It's not selling. We are going to give you everything we can for an hour, and at the end of the hour, if you feel fulfilled and complete, great. If you do want to upgrade at that point and do one of the other programs, that's awesome too. We will take whatever you've invested and we will apply it to any of the other programs that you might want to do, right? So it's not like you're going to waste this $200 if you do this session. The availability depends on timing. These will probably be scheduled several weeks out in advance. That's my guess, at least based on our schedules. We don't have a cap on these, but we just don't know when the next time available will be. And so if this is for you, then great. Now, the only risk here, and I'm just being upfront and honest. I'm not trying to create any like crazy urgency or whatever. The only risk here is if you do the 197 and you know that you really want to do the bigger program, but you want to kind of test drive it out first, then there's a chance that those 4 spots with me or those 6 spots with Sam and I are just not available. But if this serves you better, awesome. Sam and I are looking forward to helping you in whatever way we possibly can, whether it's on this 1 hour call or whether it is in some of the deeper programs. If you just want to get to that level now and you want to, get that going, then we can do that too. And so the significant question really is not what's the cost of taking action. And this is life in general. It doesn't have anything to do with just coaching programs. It's not what's the cost of taking action. It's what's the cost of not taking action. Because when we sit around and we let our fears get the best of us, that's when we end up settling. That's when we end up not creating what we can create on this planet, not realizing our potential. And that's not what I want for myself. That's not what I want for you. That's not what I want for any of my clients. It's not what I want for anybody. And you've got to have that, let's go after it mentality, because at the end of your life, it won't matter if you achieved your goals or not. At the end of your life, what's going to matter is, did you try? Did you go for it? And if you can look back and say, I went for it, then you will have lived a fulfilled and satisfied life. Now, if I or Sam and I or my company on any level is a part of that journey for you, that's fantastic. If you know that you want us on your team to help you out, that's great. I look forward to it. If not, if it's not a part of you, and if you just intuitively know this is not for you, then don't even give it a second thought. I'll say that about anything that you are looking at with our company or anybody else's company. Just intuitively know if this is something you want to do, if you think we can help you, and it's going to grow you and stretch you, that's part of the process too, then jump in. And if not, then don't jump in, right? But make that intuitive call. That's another nugget that I've learned along the way, and I really want you to just live your life that way. So before we wrap up here, let's take some questions. If there's anything you wanted to add, Sam, while I'm looking at some of these questions, let me know. Otherwise, I'll run through here and see if there's anything we can answer.
Yeah, I just wanted to. I mean, Sean, as you can tell, is just so upfront and vulnerable and like an open book to everyone. And the numbers that he shows and the things that he talks about is really the truth. It's really one of the only places that you'll find anywhere where a coach, speaker, trainer will essentially pull back the curtain and just show you what's going on with them. And it's something that I encourage everyone to take advantage of. And this is really a time about being more curious than afraid, and looking into, okay, do I really want to make this business work for me in the way that I know it can? If that's how you're feeling, then it's that voice that comes in that stops you from making those decisions that's going to continue to hold you back from whatever you want. And so, as Sean looks at those questions, just encourage you to see what's up for you, what's coming up, what are the voices that you're hearing in your head about who you are and what you stand for. And if it's a hell yeah, then I encourage you to make a move. Like Sean said, if it's not a hell yeah, then listen to that intuitive hit and go find something in your life that is a hell yeah for you.
Cool. Thanks for adding that, Sam. That's so true. All right, some questions. Will this webinar be available for replay? Hopefully, it got recorded, and if it did, then yeah, we'll send that replay to you. Um, let's see. So, isn't this the same thing that internet marketing is all about? Start a website, have a freemium, like a free opt-in, have a front-end product, have a back-end product. It's all cool stuff. So it can be. The thing that I'm really passionate about, and this is one of the reasons why I wanted to share what I did in the very beginning when I didn't have all the internet stuff up, is it doesn't have to be that way. Like Jen, that I mentioned earlier, she thrives off eyeball to eyeball coaching. And so she's not going to thrive with putting up an opt in page and getting people to join her list. That's just not who she is. So that is a possibility. But what I'm really passionate about is that's not the only way to do it. And that's what I find really causes people to struggle is when they try to fit themselves into a box. I don't want you to fit yourself into a box. I want you to understand the concepts. I want you to understand the strategy. I want you to understand why I did everything that I did, what I would do differently. I want you to understand all those things so you can create the right puzzle for you, if you will, right? So you can create the right business for you. If it does include internet marketing, then yes, all of that stuff is important in the internet world. But I didn't do any of that in my first 18 months. I did a little bit of Google advertising, but not to the level that you're talking about. So I didn't, that's why I didn't teach it on this webinar because I didn't do it then. And a lot of people think that that's the only way to do it nowadays. Just because there is this thing called the internet, you have to market on the internet. That is absolutely not true. So that is a way to do it, but it's not the only way to do it. And that's one of the things that's really important about strategy, and I didn't even really talk too much about what that 1 hour strategy set. Well, any of the coaching is going to include this, but in that 1 hour with Sam and I, one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to help you identify what that strategy is. Should you go after the internet marketing crowd? Should you just do some local stuff? Some of our clients, we realize that they need to be prominent in their local market, and that's the best thing for them. Other people need to get away from their local market and they need to go online, or even some people they're going after people in other countries because that's where their seeker is and that's where their message resonates the most. So I can't stress that enough that we've got to have some foundational certainty and strategy before going after it and really starting to get some traction in your business. Let's see. Are you ever in the UK? I've not ever been to the UK. I will be open to going anywhere. I don't have any plans on heading out to the UK at the moment, but most of our stuff is online, and at some point in time, we might do live events in this particular market. Right now, we're mostly doing webinars. That's what fits my schedule. It's what fits my personality right now. It's what fits our product type. And there's just so much to be said about strategy, intentional strategy, right? I told you I have 5 different seekers and I speak to them differently and I also market to them differently. I do live events in some of the markets and not live events in other markets, right? So it's about strategy and it's about intention and it's about taking those calculated steps. It's not about doing the same thing for everybody. So I don't see any other questions at the moment that are pertinent or relevant for the whole crowd. So if this is something that you want to participate in, awesome. If not, awesome. All right. I'm positive there are nuggets in here that you can use and it might just be one single thing. It might be that the bigger dollar is deeper in the funnel. It might be how important live events are. It might be going out and speaking to local community, right? It might be something that I didn't actually do, but this concept will spawn a thought inside of you that can lead to bigger and better things for you. So Hopefully, this has been valuable for you. You're going to take a nugget and you're going to expand your business, and you are going to grow as a result, personally, professionally, and what have you. We look forward to those of you that are going to take us up on any of the three offers. If any of them resonate with you, if they speak to you, then jump in. And if they don't, I look forward to connecting with you further, whether it's online or via email or whatever. So, with that, everybody, I honor and appreciate all of you for being here. I know a lot of you stuck with us for this entire 2 hours, and I just think that's awesome. I wasn't intending to go for 2 hours, but I'm actually a little bit surprised that it was only 2 hours. Start talking about all things business. This is such a big conversation to have. So, with that, everyone, take care. God bless. If there's anything that we can do to help you out, let us know. We'll talk to you real soon.